I really enjoy reflecting on the elements, the five elements of earth, air, fire, water, and space, just because it's such a good way of seeing the diversity of things and how they all come down to just these five elements. And I find that the more that I reflect on them, the more I can appreciate them, just like anything that we study. The more I study and reflect on things, the more I can understand it and appreciate it. So today I want to talk about one of my favorite qualities or favorite elements, which is water. Um, and I like reflecting on this because there's so many qualities about water that are also related to the mind. It's also so mind-boggling to think that this body is 60% water. It doesn't feel like it's 60% water. It feels very solid. But just thinking about that fact that it's 60% water, and also that I drink the same water as you guys. And so that's really not, if both of our bodies are 60% water and we're drinking the same water, what's really the difference between my body and your body if it's 60% the same? That can be really helpful in just teasing apart, thinking those things are different when they really aren't. It's also really important to not take it for granted. As we've experienced some water problems lately, we can appreciate how rare it is to actually have good, clean drinking water. About 1 in 3 people in the world don't have access to good, clean drinking water in their homes. They don't have the luxury of just turning on a spigot and drinking fresh, healthy water. It's also important to remember that with climate change, water scarcity is increasing with different changing patterns, and about 40% of the world population deals with water scarcity, with problems of not having access to water, and that by 2030, just in 8 more years, 700 million people are at risk of being displaced, having to leave their homes due to having lack of water, due to drought and water scarcity. And it's so important to just remember how much our life depends on water, that if we didn't have water just for a couple days, we would die. So it's just amazing to think about how much we take it for granted, of how this basic element that we're so composed of just how vital it is, and to really appreciate it. I also really like thinking about the qualities of water and how it can kind of relate to qualities of the mind. And one of those qualities is the fluidity of it, how it flows, and it's so flexible and moving and flowing. It's soft and gentle, and yet it's also unrelenting. By following the law of gravity, it's always seeking out that lowest spot, which usually winds up being back in the ocean. And so even though it can be soft and gentle, it can carve the Grand Canyon and create massive change also. So I sometimes ask myself, how can I be like water? How can I have that very clear end goal of that goal of awakening, of bodhicitta, never wavering, but also flowing, adapting, and adjusting to what's needed in the moment. And as Geshe Tabke said, just no matter how long it takes, just to continuously be patient and persistent, finding ways to move forward, even if it feels like it's going backwards. The Pandre River that we have outside of Newport here sometimes looks like it's going the wrong direction. As it leaves Newport, it actually flows north, whereas most rivers in the West flow west. And so even though it's flowing north, it's still going to eventually get to the ocean. So even though sometimes it feels like we're not going in the right direction, having that clear end goal and being firm on that will eventually get us to what we really want. Another quality of that fluidity is that I try to remind myself of just let it go and let it flow. So not getting stuck in any side whirlpools or eddies, brackish waters that just create a lot of pollution and confusion, but to keep things flowing, to keep it fresh, keep it alive, keep my mind in a bigger picture. Another quality of water is the diversity of the expressions of the forms that it takes. Lakes, waterfalls, mist, fog, rain, something called grapple, which is like styrofoam balls when it's cold, icicles, glaciers, even frost hoar, which is the little crystals on snow so many different expressions, and it's all just made out of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen. So many different expressions, all just based on temperature. And just like how our mind has the basic nature of clarity, purity, and knowing, from that, it's expressed in so many different ways due to the influences of karma, causes and conditions. So many different factors create all these different expressions of our thoughts, feelings, and experiences. And also, just like how we have the same basic wish to be free from suffering and to be happy, we all express that in so many different ways. And there's so many different ways of reaching that. I also like how it's always amazed me how water, right at 32 degrees, it freezes. It can change forms so dramatically, just at one little temperature difference. And I was thinking that our mind, or my mind, when it's influenced from self-grasping and self-centeredness, is 32 degrees. It freezes things, it solidifies things, it makes me cold and hard, sharp, feeling immovable and isolated. Not at all the warmer temperatures of being fluid, adaptable, warm, friendly, and feeling connected. And so at that 32 degrees, that self-grasping, it's a very painful illusion of feeling that I'm separate. One of those expressions is that not just feeling that I'm separate, but also that I'm in control. And from that feeling of control causes a lot of pain and conflict because it's not realistic at all. And I'm slowly trying to recognize that I'm not in control, but I can influence and contribute to things. There's so many different factors that contribute to everything. I can't control it, but I can influence it and contribute. So I'm not separate from it, but I can't control it. And the third quality of water that I really like to reflect on is its purity. That water can get polluted from things, but it doesn't really change its basic nature. It can still be purified. And just like the purity of our mind can get polluted, but it's not stained by the afflictions. As Geshe-Geshe was saying, that it's only when the mind is associated with the stains of the afflictive emotions does its purity become obscured. And so I try to remember that these impurities, these pollutions, they're not me, but it's only when I identify with them that it becomes troubling and causes a lot of pain. So that big difference is identifying the difference between saying, I am angry, I am jealous, I am afraid, versus right now I am feeling afraid, jealous, whatever. Just that little bit of difference is a huge difference, not identifying with the feelings, but just saying, okay, they're here, I have pollution in my mind, it's happening. Not identifying with them and just separating from them. So in nature, water can be purified through the environment, through interacting with many different factors in an ecosystem, like mangroves on coasts help filter out water. Estuaries have a lot of different plants and diversity filtering out water, and different watersheds, forests also bring in a lot of plant life and many different factors to filter out and purify clean water. And so just like our mind, we need a lot of different factors to recognize that it's not fixed, separate, and permanent, not inherently bad, but dependent on so many different factors. It's supported and influenced by so many different things. And so we can purify our mind by remembering that it's so diverse and it's always changing and it's always influenced by many things. So just like how water is completely interdependent and flows in harmony with nature, so are we. So we can recognize our interdependence, our fluidity, purity, and diversity, and appreciate how the many different expressions that we come in. And the more we can appreciate those differences and those similarities, the more we can just appreciate, celebrate, and learn to really care for it, for ourselves, for each other, and for the planet.